Welcome to the Dr. Jim Cares podcast with Dr. James Augustine, where we provide powerful solutions for helping you create wellness. The following discussion is for educational purposes only and is not meant to diagnose or treat disease. Because our approach is individualized, it's important to not apply this information without first consulting with your healthcare professional. And now, here's Dr. Jim.
Hey, welcome back to the Dr. Jim Cares podcast. My name is Dr. Augustine from Ed Wellness, and today we're going to be talking about inflammation. Do you deal with inflammation? Several aspects. We're going to talk about what causes inflammation. We're going to talk about solutions, of course. And if you've looked and searched around on, say, YouTube for inflammation, there's all sorts of videos. The problem is most of them are really meant for doctors. They really get into such minute detail that's not really applicable to your inflammation. It's great if you're going to school, but not so good, or if you're a doctor, but not so good, really to help you to solve these problems. Inflammation is core and causal to just about every health condition. As a matter of fact, there's a doctor, his name is Dr. Hauger. He had said back in 2015 and he estimated that 80% of all major human diseases today are mediated by inflammation or caused by inflammation. So let's get into this. Inflammation. Everybody seems to have some sort of inflammation going on. So let's talk about some causes. And the first one we'll start with, which is the most obvious, is trauma, whether it be current traumas, past injuries. I always talk to people saying, well, guys, back in the day, we went to high school. We had football injuries, baseball injuries, basketball injuries. We got in fights in high school. And so therefore, injuries to knees and elbows and shoulders and backs and all of those sorts of things, sprained ankles. I've sprained both ankles so many times, it's amazing. Used to play racquetball as well. So all of those types of problems cause inflammation at first. And here's the problem with inflammation. Inflammation eventually turns into scar tissue. Everything within about 6 weeks' time of having an injury turns into scar tissue. You will feel better after 6 weeks. The problem is that scar tissue is more pain sensitive. There's actually new pain nerve fibers built into scar tissue, as well as baroreceptors, pressure receptors. This is why people can say, gosh, at the time of the year when the weather changes and it gets really cold, you'll have achy stiffness and soreness in your joints. That's actually because of all that scar tissue that's developed. So a good thing to do with that is to break up the scar tissue. And we'll get into more of that. But trauma is a big and significant injury that eventually will catch up to us. So you go from teenage years to 20s to 30s, especially in your 40s and 50s is when you start to really notice all that inflammation with the scar tissue. That could be a problem. Traumatic brain injury is another type of injury that seems to be very, very much on the rise today. I've seen so many cases of traumatic brain injury. This is concussion. And in high school football, in the NFL, lots of traumatic brain injury occurring. It's the hits and the strikes to the head that creates this problem. And maybe you've seen it in the news, but these NFL football players, they're going off the rails. They're killing themselves, suicides, as well as maybe their girlfriends or their spouses. Just crazy stuff happening with traumatic brain injury, but also just concussions. I myself have had concussion that is showing up now. If you've seen a previous podcast of mine, I talked about a very special test called a Neural Zoomer Plus that can identify some really significant trauma going on in the brain and problems going on in the brain. So I remember back in the day wrestling with my boys. It's kind of one of those things that fathers do with their children. And the older kid, we were wrestling around, and I happened to fall backwards, and he was on top of me, and I struck my head on the edge of the arm of the couch. Saw stars. Wasn't very fun. Stopped, but that was my introduction for myself with concussion. And it's been said that if you've had 5 or more concussions in your lifetime, the next one can be fatal. I've seen hockey players, all kinds of significant problems. Also, it really, really affects mood and emotion, can affect your full body because your brain runs and regulates everything going on inside your body. So traumatic brain injury, another cause of inflammation. And inflammation, by the way, starts from the inside. There's something that causes your immune system to react. So it's your immune system's reaction to injury, trauma, and all of these other things that we're going to talk about. That's what creates inflammation inside your body. And inflammation, as you know, it can be swelling. There can be certainly pain with it as well. So the next level or the next cause would be infection. The obvious thing with infection is bugs. Bacteria, virus, parasite, fungus, yeast, all of these things can cause and are infection. COVID, you've heard of COVID. We just went through that not that long ago, and some people are still going through COVID, but COVID creates this, what's called a cytokine storm. And cytokine storm is a massive, major immune response to a particular infection. Classically, it went on in your lungs and literally can kill people. Cytokine storm is not a good thing. So you have these really strong and very powerful immune pathways that can cause some traumatic damage to tissue in your body. So infection. Toxins would be the next cause that I'd like to talk about. And toxins can be, the ones that I like to speak about commonly would be glyphosate. Glyphosate is Roundup, the pesticide weed killer that is sprayed on wheat and also a lot of other agricultural things, items that we like to eat. And it's actually at the causal level of what's called leaky gut. So ingesting these chemical toxins can cause trauma to our bodies, can cause inflammation in our intestines, and damage the lining of our small intestine, hence causing a leaky gut. Then imagine toxins in your body. That's also not good. There's a word that's very obvious, and it's called, the word is carcinogen, cancer-causing substance. So toxins are not a good thing. They can cause inflammation because your body's saying, your immune system specifically saying, what in the world is that? Attack, 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 hence sends immune cells to there to go attack whatever it is to get rid of it, and that process creates inflammation for us. Another type of toxin can be plastics. There can be things also in our water that can cause problems. A lady not that long ago who passed away from Lou Gehrig's disease, which is ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, had a bunch of toxins in her water supply coming from the municipal water supply that was at the causal level of trauma to her brain and lots of inflammation going on in her body. Plastics can come from, or plastic toxins can come from the plastic water bottles that people will buy to drink out of, and there's also all tons of little plastic particles that we ingest. And your body doesn't know what that is, it attacks it, inflammation is created there. Something else, a vitamin that can be low, and it's vitamin D. Most people have heard of vitamin D, especially with this big COVID problem that we ran into. And people that had adequate levels of vitamin D didn't have such a problem, as big of a problem with COVID as the people with low vitamin D. Most people are really low in vitamin D. Not a good thing. So low vitamin D, another cause for inflammation. Now, how about this? Since we're looking holistically, looking at your body holistically, stress. Who doesn't have stress out there? I do. We all do to some extent. Stress, therefore, can cause adrenal gland issues. So imagine on the tops of your kidneys are these two glands. They're called adrenals. They are your stress glands. They produce hormones that are really, really powerful, one of them being cortisol. Cortisol sounds like cortisone, major steroid anti-inflammatory that really shuts down inflammation. So imagine having stress, too much stress. What happens is your adrenals are not going to produce enough cortisol, hence cortisone. Therefore, you're going to have problems. You'll be more pro-inflammatory just from having too much stress and having adrenal issues, therefore. Which then go hand in hand with insomnia being the next cause. Insomnia, not getting enough sleep. Now, I always used to say that, I always say it's the little kid in me because I could be a late night person. I could stay up till 11:30, 12, it just does not work. So the people that have those late night work shifts where they're working throughout the nighttime and they sleep during the day, just not a healthy thing. You will be so pro-inflammatory with that. Not a good thing at all. Insomnia in general is a big deal, and it also can make you very much pro-inflammatory. Partially, one of the reasons is just the fact that it's so much stress on your body. Your adrenals are not going to function well enough, and you're going to be very inflamed because of it. Not so good. Another and the next level would be allergies and asthma. Now, growing up, I had lots of allergies and asthma, and I was on medication back in that day. And allergies from stuff, the environmental sensitivities like pollen and dust, dry grass, cat hair, dog hair, dander, all those things, dust mites. There's a ton of things in our environment that can create allergies. And guess what? That's your immune system responding to something it doesn't like, and it creates inflammation, whether it be in your lungs, or it's on your skin, or it's in your sinuses. You have chronic sinusitis, not a good thing. Inflammation. What about dealing with and trying to discover causes to these problems? That's another side of this whole aspect of, okay, how do you deal with inflammation other than just going right to trying to shut it down? You really should investigate or work with a functional medicine doctor to try to discover the causes behind these things, because some of them aren't so obvious. It's easy to say, well, get more sleep, okay, and decrease your stress. Well, that's not easy. You can't quit your job and fire your family. So there has to be other ways that you can help to balance that stuff out. Sometimes you can't get rid of your stress, but you have to strengthen, improve your adrenal gland function so that your body can actually overcome the stress and the stress doesn't harm you so much physically. So looking to root causes behind these stressors are also part of the process in the bigger picture of solutions. Obesity, and this was an interesting comment. Obesity and its sister companion, type 2 diabetes, are at epidemic proportions in this country, and that's so true. And it's the one thing that connects the two, obesity and type 2 diabetes, is inflammation. Inflammation is a big deal. Having more adipocytes or fat cells means that you're going to have way more cytokine problems, that really powerful inflammatory response in your body because of having too much body fat makes you much more pro-inflammatory. Then let's talk about diabetes. Diabetes is a major, massive problem. Pre-diabetes today, 1 out of 3 people are pre-diabetic. 1 out of 3. Diabetes, blood sugar problems, promotes inflammation, really creates inflammation. So if you combine that, what happens with diabetes is it causes heart disease. So we're getting into this big cascade of problems from diabetes causing heart disease plus also obesity. Big deal. Big causes of inflammation there. So let's move to another system in your body, gastrointestinal problems. Gastrointestinal, and I want to talk, probably my next episode actually in this podcast is going to be about autoimmune disease. But gastrointestinal problems are at the causal level of most autoimmune diseases. Have stress, and again, who doesn't have stress? Shuts down your digestive enzyme production because it puts you onto that stress sympathetic side of your nervous system. You have a hard time then producing digestive enzymes. So the people that have heartburn, indigestion, it's because of your stress level as one aspect of shutting down and causing problems in your digestive tract. So if you can't digest effectively up here and you can't stop eating food, that rotting, spoiling food goes through your digestive tract and creates what? Inflammation. It's been said that 70% of your immune system is actually in your digestive tract, and it's no wonder that so many people have so many problems with their digestive tract, from bloating and gas, constipation, diarrhea, all of those types of problems, including heartburn and indigestion up top. So gastrointestinal is a major contributing factor to a full body and systemic inflammatory response or inflammation throughout your entire body. Matter of fact, gastrointestinal then leads to the next level or next cause of inflammation, which would be autoimmune disease. Inflammation in your gut. Autoimmune disease, what's the connection there? That's what we're going to talk about more in depth within this next episode. But autoimmune disease is your immune system looks at your own body tissues as foreign invaders like bacteria, virus, parasite, fungus, or yeast, or plastics, or something that shouldn't be in your body, and starts attacking various different organ systems and body tissues. Pancreas, type 1 diabetes, thyroid, Hashimoto's, rheumatoid arthritis, attacking your joint tissue and destroying it. Autoimmune brain. Most problems that are going on in the brain actually are autoimmune. So you need to discover it, you need to solve it. Autoimmune, major, constant inflammatory process. And the best that medicine has to offer today, the rheumatologist, is always to suppress or squash immune responses so people feel better. And don't get me wrong, feeling better is great. It's just what kind of an expense are you going to pay? Because as you know, there's some pretty major side effects to Humira, which is like the most significant autoimmune immune squashing medication that's offered today for people. So what's next? What else causes inflammation would be food. Food. Certainly, eating too much of certain types of food can be very pro-inflammatory. What would those foods be? And things that you might want to avoid would be omega-6 fatty acids or omega-6 oils. What would those be? Soy oils, vegetable oil, canola oil, the seed oils, sunflower, safflower oil, highly refined oils, trans fats. Maybe you've heard of partially hydrogenated fats. Bad stuff. Literally causes damage to your heart and blood vessels. Really traumatic, but very pro-inflammatory. Going to restaurants, you really want to try to limit going to restaurants because restaurants use a lot of omega-6 fats. I saw somebody coming out of a Chinese food restaurant the other day with a big box to bring home to their family, and on the box it said vegetable oil in big giant letters. I'm like, oh, okay, not a good thing. So try to limit, or if you do go to restaurants, ask them what type of fats and oils do they cook in. Cured meats with nitrates and nitrites, such as hot dogs. Cured meats can be very pro-inflammatory for you. Also, and the thing that I wanted to leave to the last would be starch and sugar in your diet. Starch and sugar are very pro-inflammatory. Also, causing heart disease, but also raising your cholesterol levels. Raising your cholesterol, starch and sugar. They beat the daylights out of your liver. Liver makes cholesterol. So starch, sugar, and alcohol, very pro-inflammatory. So you want to try to avoid those, and now we're going to get into some solutions. Okay, so what do you do with this? What do you do with inflammation? Now, this isn't a complete list of all the causes of inflammation, nor is it a complete list of all the things that you could possibly do to solve inflammation, but it's a pretty good list. Nutrients and lifestyle, let's talk about those things. So from a nutrient perspective, maybe you've heard of this, turmeric, same thing. But turmeric today, if you take it as a supplement, it's mostly bound to black pepper. Black pepper does not transport turmeric very well at all around your body to bring down inflammation. And your liver will completely get rid of it. Now, there's a special type of turmeric that I've found. It's the only one that I've truly found that really does the job. Like everything that's been explained about turmeric, this is the one that really works. And it's called Turmeric Forte by a company called MediHerb. And it's because the turmeric is actually bound to fenugreek. Fenugreek is an herb that can actually take turmeric even past the blood-brain barrier. And they've done studies on this that it is not removed and detoxified by the liver. Over 90% of the turmeric from Turmeric Forte will remain in your bloodstream to then be taken around where you need anti-inflammatory responses. So Turmeric Forte, MediHerb standard process, same thing. Vitamin D. You need higher levels of vitamin D. Classically, I do blood work. It's really good to get a blood level in your vitamin D. And if the range is 30 to 100 on the blood work that you would do. Normally, most people are 30 or less. And if you're just 30, your doctor will say, oh, your vitamin D is good. No, it's not. You really want your vitamin D to get up above 70. If it goes, the problem with vitamin D, if it goes above 100 or 450, then you start having higher blood levels of calcium. I never see people do that because, well, we always keep a good handle on that. But I would suggest that if you don't know your blood levels of vitamin D, and especially as we're going into cold and flu season within the next 3 to 4 months, check your vitamin D and then raise up and get lots of good vitamin D. If you want the levels of how much you should take based on where your blood level of vitamin D is at, let me know. I'd love to hear questions from you. Please leave comments for me on those things. But low vitamin D, pro-inflammatory. High vitamin D, great immune system strengthening vitamin that's critical, but also very anti-inflammatory. So vitamin D is a really, really good thing. Another one, Boswellia, anti-inflammatory herb that really, really works well. Boswellia, another great herb. Omega-3 fish oils. Omega-3 fish oils. If you take a fish oil, you want to make sure 2 things. It's clean from chemicals and heavy metals, and secondly, you want to make sure that it's fresh. So it's great when you can see independent labs have checked this particular fish oil for you. And there are 2 types. There's DHA and there's EPA. DHA is more for brain health. EPA is more for heart health. Regardless, get plenty of omega-3 because it tends to be very anti-inflammatory for you. Something that you probably won't hear out there, and hydrochloric acid, HCl, a digestive enzyme, tends to help you to be more anti-inflammatory. Why would we take this is because we have we talked about this earlier, about having too much stress shuts down digestive enzyme production and then starts that whole inflammatory cascade and problems that we can develop. So if you can digest more effectively, it's going to help you be less inflammatory. Whole food vitamin C complex. Whole food vitamin C, why? Because it does, if you look up anything on vitamin C, you'll see tons and tons and tons of information about vitamin C. Vitamin C is the catalyst for just about everything. It's also antioxidant. It's going to help shut down inflammation in your body. Really good thing. Probiotics. And why probiotics for inflammation? Well, because it helps to fight off the bad guys that can be in your intestines. And as I said, since 70% of your immune system is in your gut, your digestive tract, probiotics will help to shut down those bad bugs that are there and kind of be helping you become more anti-inflammatory. Adrenal supplements make sense, doesn't it? Because we talked about how adrenals, when they're overstressed, you're not producing enough and adequate levels of cortisol to keep your body anti-inflammatory. So supporting your adrenals is a really critical foundational thing to do to become anti-inflammatory. Which adrenal supplements should you take? Contact me. I'd love to help you out with that. Also, from a lifestyle perspective, getting more sleep, critical for becoming more anti-inflammatory. It's amazing how good you will feel from brain, especially the first thing that happens is when you start to have a lack of sleep and your body's overly stressed and overly tired, you get brain fog. What is that? That's inflammation. That's neuroinflammation in your brain. Exercise, great thing to do. Now, should you run, 5-6 miles a day? Probably not. You can start off with stretching. You can start off with taking a walk. Moving your body moves fluids around and shifts things, stretches you out, improves your brain and how it functions, improves blood flow, improves energy, really helps you to become more anti-inflammatory. Life balance is kind of a good thing with regards to exercise. Deep breathing. Deep breathing will immediately change your whole body physiology. If you want to look up, there's some great videos on TikTok and also on YouTube on Wim Hof breathing. And it's really extremely deep breathing, deep breath in and really deep breath out, but you do like 30 to 40 deep breaths in a row. Really great stuff. Change your physiology immediately. Even if you did 20 deep breaths twice a day, immediately change your full body physiology. It's a great thing. Low carbohydrate eating. That's kind of a given. I know we said some stuff about starch and sugar earlier, but truly, low carb eating will make you very anti-inflammatory. So there's some diets out there. The ketogenic diet tends to be one of the most anti-inflammatory ways to eat. There's the lion diet, there's the carnivore diet, and part of the reason why those work so well is you're taking so many anti-inflammatory foods out of your diet, such as grains. Grains are one of the most inflammatory foods you can possibly eat, including quinoa. Again, take those out. Dark green vegetables, good thing. I don't recommend vegetarian. I don't recommend completely dark greens because they can also irritate your gut. They have some chemicals built into them so that you don't eat them and things don't damage the plant. So there's some chemicals in it that can be very irritating and inflammatory. But having adequate greens, we're going to give you all that phytonutrition that's super good for your body. So dark greens. What do you think? A lot of information there. So in summary, inflammation is involved in every human condition. Reducing and removing it can make major, major improvements. But again, you want to find root causes, and many of the causes can make such a profound change in your full body physiology. It can be the thing that really shuts the problem down. Many solutions that we talked about, so really, really choose wisely here. I'd love to hear your questions or comments. And also, too, if you need some help with things like that, please contact me. I'm on email. My email is actually draugustine@gmail.com, draugustine@gmail. You can reach out to my office my phone number is 562-860-3404. I'm on social media, Instagram, TikTok, as well as YouTube. Please give me a follow there. I'm also on Apple and Spotify podcasts, so please subscribe and give me a like and a follow there as well. My name is Dr. Augustine from Head to Wellness. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next podcast.